Jimmy, you ready? You ready? Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Would you please stand to the pledge of the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the records reflect the members that are present here this evening. The commission members should have received the draft minutes for September 25th, 2023. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the September 25th meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Carried. Thank you. Delegation and action items. Looks like we have EVAPCO, Third Amendment, preliminary site plan, presentation. Darrell, you want to lead us off on this?
Sure. These gentlemen are going to be presenting the third amended plan for EVAPCO office expansion, and this is for a preliminary plan only presentation and facade presentation as well.
Would anyone would like to come before us? And everyone's got this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That on the screen? No. Okay. All right.
Good evening. My name is Jim Mathias. I'm with Development Design Consultants. We are the consulting engineer for this project. I have with me this evening Mr. Bill Jones with EVAPCO and Mr. Chad Reindaler, also with EVAPCO. Not to diminish the significance of this project, but what we're showing with this preliminary plan is completely similar to what you guys have approved for the concept plan presentation, with the exception of the additional information that we have for you this evening. And that is, I see you have copies of it, is the rendering showing the architectural facades, window placements, and things of that nature. So with that, we're here to answer any questions that you may have or describe any of the details that are shown on the plan.
Any questions at this point? The plans were going out to the county and all the different agents, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Been distributed for a while.
So we all will soon be hearing something back, right?
We are reading letters back, comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Parker there, we've received comments, nothing of substance that we're really concerned with.
We have a couple comments here I'd like to ask or questions. Actually, there's no change to the site footprint. I'm not talking about the building, I'm talking about the whole site, right?
Correct.
Okay. And while the construction's going on, how are you handling the parking of the employees now?
Sure. So we actually have repurposed some of the paved area in the back of the current property. We repurposed that for parking. So that's going to accommodate, I believe it's 50?
It might be more. It might be more.
50 to 75 additional parking spots.
Okay. Good. And I noticed you're asking for 12 new EDUs. Is that an issue for us?
Not at this time.
No? Okay. That's any questions I have. Anyone else? Anyone from the floor have any comments or questions? All right. So we're thinking maybe another couple months, we'll have all the replies back?
Correct. Yep. We'll be here for preliminary plan approval.
Okay. Just keeping in mind, we normally do not have session at end of December, normally. But that doesn't say we won't. I just heads up.
Thank you.
Jim, did you have any comments?
Just typically, if there is something that would have fallen on the December agenda, that's an approval type thing, we typically hold a meeting in the first week or so in January to catch up.
Thank you.
We thank you very much.
Thanks, gents. Take care. Yep.
Thank you. Ordinance and agreements, none. Planning, Daryl, your report?
Thanks, sir. On October the 12th, we had a meeting with the Soul, on the Soul Farm. Just to talk, reintroduce the players that are now in place there. Mayor Miller attended, City Manager Wyprecht, myself, Chairman Parker. Went pretty good. There's a lot going on, so of course they were curious about things like, Garnet Ridge and, tying in there. Jim had a brilliant idea about the, what may happen with tying in a second point for Garnet Ridge. And those are all things that are being at least, explored, discussed, whatever. But I appreciate you bringing that up. City Manager Wyprecht and Economic Development Director Jay Mishi met with the principals at FlowServe to discuss scenarios for a path over their property for the bypass. It went as good as could be expected. They're going to go back to their people, and then we start to discuss. So, but the meeting did happen. Jim, do you have anything on that?
No, I think overall it was positive.
Daryl, FlowServe, is this their main headquarters, or do they have a main site somewhere else?
I know they have other locations. They do own this site and all the land. Jim, do you know if they're headquartered? I know they're in Texas.
This isn't, to the best of our knowledge, this is not their headquarters.
Okay.
But as Daryl said, they do own this where they lease a lot of their other sites. So
Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay, sure. FP Duffy, Thane had asked me to contact him in mid-November to set up a tour. I don't know how long it'll take. I'm gonna, would afternoon be best for you guys? Good. Yeah. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. I'm very curious. They are, the machine's up and running, they're tuning it, and they're undergoing their UNO as we speak. Jim, there will be a red line drawing for a handicap spot for parking out there.
Okay.
But because it's a commercial spot, it can be done that way, that one handicap spot. So we'll be talking about that. Other than that, y'all, other than, stuff's coming and going, code enforcement's winding down a little bit, hopefully. The grass, they tell me stops growing. I don't know what'll happen next, but it'll be something, or maybe chickens. But we'll talk about that later on.
Okay.
But, so good things are happening.
Okay. Coming back up to the Garnet Ridge site, we gave concept plan approval July 2022, but then they did a revised plan of March of this year.
Yes.
So where does that stand? Does that still stand as a concept approval, or do we need to act on that since it's a revised plan?
Seems to me we should vote on it a second time if it's revised.
I'm saying because I don't show it.
Okay.
Jim, could you jump
So,
in maybe?
yeah. Daryl and I actually had a meeting with Ward Communities, online meeting this afternoon, and they have rethought their approach out there, and they are going to, they would rather do it as a subdivision rather than a condo structure. So because the subdivision regulations are different than site plan regulations, they're going to be coming back before you for a concept subdivision approval once they get the lot lines figured out and the setbacks and everything drawn up. So what you gave concept approval was a site plan. They were, I think, perhaps there was some miscommunication between the developer and the engineer with the idea that this was going to be following what we refer to as the Carol Vista model. But they want it to be a fee simple subdivision rather than a condo structure. So they need to make some changes, but it's going to be reviewed now as a subdivision rather than a site plan. So that's going to come back before you
Okay.
as a subdivision for concept approval.
So this has been longer than a year, so this is actually drops off the
And
books, right?
And with them, and with them rethinking their approach, we really need to kind of start from the beginning, just so procedurally, we do everything by the book.
Okay, all right.
By changing this to a development plan, then that reopens the discussion about public streets versus privately owned.
It could. I don't think the intent is to change anything there. With it being an age-restricted community, they, are trying to follow most of that model like Carol Vista did with the private infrastructure. They don't want it to be a public street. Hence with the idea of connecting that to the Sewell property for emergency services, they were pretty firm that they would want that to be, very limited only for emergency services and have some, some means to really control that. But they are still thinking private streets.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's right. Chairman, I have nothing else unless you all have questions for me.
Anyone have any questions about the projects?
Lumberyard. What's the latest and greatest? Anything?
Quiet.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the question.
Lumberyard.
The lumberyard.
So lumberyard's
Hardware store, lumberyard.
been quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me about it.
Okay. And the land behind the tannery barn, what was the intent with that? Wasn't there some action or not action, but some movement?
Well,
I'm just talking about the acreage that's behind them.
you talking about the actual, what was it, 22, was it 22?
22 acres.
22 acres.
About that.
The 22 that, you know where the tents are now? So again, the tannery barn is looking at doing a couple things for their wedding venue. They're looking into, temporary tents for certain functions. They're looking at ways to increase their parking and getting totally independent from what they've been doing for the last few years. So it sounds like a good plan, but they're looking into it, and they do plan to get back to us at a future date.
That 22 acres is behind it and to the side, right? Is it include that field between the old doctor's office and that brick house there? Is that included?
The old doctor's office. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, the white brick building.
The Archdiocese.
Yeah.
I think that's the entrance to that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
That they bought from someone else,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. Anything from Jay? Jay?
Coming in. You have me now? All right,
Very good.
great. The only thing I want to talk about is the chicken ordinance, and you have that later on your agenda, so I can wait until then and tell you a little bit about that.
All right. I got a page of questions. All right.
But I got a few.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the county. Hello.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good evening. Just a few updates tonight. The 2023 triennial update to the Water and Sewer Master Plan has officially gone through MDE, Maryland Department of Environment, and been approved. It is now posted on the county website and has been emailed to the city staff. And that now does replace all previous plans or amendments. And there will not be any fall amendment to that right now, and then spring amendments as they come. For the Transportation Master Plan, it was presented to the county's Planning Commission in earlier this month, and it will be going before them on the 14th of November for approval. And the city staff should have received that as well, I hope. And then the housing study was set to go the recommendation for award for the housing study was set to go before the the county commissioners earlier this month, but it's been postponed to the 2nd of November. And that will be like part 2 or 3 of the county's new master plan. We're just getting some base information on housing in the county. And then for the economic development and land use study, it is now completed, and the findings or the study will be presented to the Planning Commission on the 14th of November as well. And that is everything I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Anyone? Nope. Doesn't appear so. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks again. Okay, moving to old business. Appears not to be any. So new business. We'll start with the backyard chickens. So Daryl or Jim, would you, either one of you, like to start us off here?
So, I'm sure you've all read the document. So you all can make comments tonight, and I guess Jim will present them to the mayor and city council at the workshop. I'm asking. So we can open up the discussion, Chairman. I think it's the best thing to do. There's been a lot of research that's gone into this. Yeah, I'm not going to try to steer and say what, what the county said as far as chickens. I mean, I will share that 3 chickens is something you would not want to do in a half acre. 6 chickens you wouldn't want to do in an acre. So, we have to just keep in mind, my only concern as an animal, someone who likes animals, more importantly, realizes the responsibility, whether it be a cat or a dog or parakeet, whatever, is the fact that, it's a commitment for multiple years. A chicken can live in the right conditions. It's rather unusual, but 10 years. That's a long commitment. And the challenge is that chickens only lay eggs after a certain period of time, and then for a period of time, call it 2.5 years, robustly. And if you start out with 6 chickens, you don't have any way to come in and rotate them through as they age, which some people, a lot of people have done. I can get 6 chickens, so it's just a little bit of concern there, because I have heard, now down at the conference, I can't remember who it was. I wanted to go grab the name tag and shoot a picture of it, because chickens in their area have become a problem, being the new cats. So can you imagine you walking down the street and you see someone feeding a chicken that's coming out from the bushes or something. So anyway, just a little bit of concern there. But in any case, let's start a discussion.
Okay. So actually, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, we are at a point to make a recommendation, either favorable or unfavorable, whatever, right? To go back to the council?
The ordinance hasn't been officially introduced yet, so this is really just
Just a
informational.
discussion.
So, right, you'll have a crack to comment on it officially next month, assuming the mayor and council vote to introduce it November 13th.
Okay.
And Jay, I believe, has some comments. He's reviewed the draft and kind of sent back this evening a markup that you guys haven't seen yet. We'll get that to you, but I know he had some comments on the current draft to share.
Okay. So let's start off with some questions.
Do we want to hear what Jay has to say first, or?
Jay, did you want to start out, or do you want to hear what we have to say first?
let me just tell you that you're not missing anything in my comments because I took what was in front of you and just made it more proper for fitting in the code book. Changing the names, changing the wording, changing how things were A, B, and C. I did not put anything, different in it. So hearing from you will be the important part to see where we go with this.
Okay, thanks. Let me just start out with a couple things, and then, Mr. Myers, since you're the engineer, you can tell me how close I am with these figures. If the coop is 4 square foot per chicken, roughly, wouldn't that be like 24 square feet total for 6 chickens? And that would cover a space of like a 4 by 6 box? Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Now, a 4 by 6 box in your backyard, and you're saying it should be 10 feet from property line, but in our auxiliary building, what's the term for the outside buildings?
Accessory.
Accessory buildings, I think that's in 20524, you say 5 feet from property line. So why are we coming up with something different to make it more difficult for the zone administrator or somebody else to have to keep track of if this does go through? So just keep that in mind. Also, you also in 20524, we have a height of 15 feet for a building, but there isn't any height set in this. So if somebody wants,
I'm gonna put 2 floors in my chicken house. so
well,
that
I
can
was
have-
wondering if you 2 floors, because you usually have
I knew it had
the
to be
base
you,
floor,
Dave.
Stack your chicken boxes vertically.
well, and then you have your eggs, your coops up on another level. So how is that figured, the 2 foot or to 4 foot square per chicken?
So the coop is, per this, considered an accessory building. So, and the reason it has a larger setback is just the idea that, a shed, while certainly somebody can be maybe working on a lawnmower in it or something like that, typically there's not going to be a smell or a noise associated with it. Where a chicken coop, you can kind of anticipate the possibility of that. So in the initial draft, it actually was a 20-foot setback, but consensus of council was to knock that down to 10. So that's why the difference from another type of accessory dwelling is really because of the use of it may have more adverse impact on neighboring properties. So the idea was to keep it a little bit farther away from the neighbors.
Now, as I understand this, you have to have 4 square foot per chicken as a coop, but then there also needs to be an enclosed run that is at least 10 square feet per chicken. So actually what you have is 84 square feet of auxiliary structure that would be, and I agree, there probably should be, if we have a height limit for 10 by 10 sheds, then there ought to be a height limit for this, or somebody's gonna be building themselves an aviary. That's, yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was leading on to next, because then the run area would be roughly a 6 foot by 10 foot to get your 6 plus the building. Now, to do that, are they gonna have to bring a plan before us? And it's gonna be just like to pull the permit, right?
Yeah.
What, on those requirements, I mean, I know there was some research done. I mean, is that based on having a healthy chicken, they need that much space, or, I mean,
That's pretty close. I went online and I looked at a bunch of, and a lot of
Healthy-
videos.
Healthy and humane, they're more productive that way.
Yeah.
They're happy.
More of a happy chicken.
yeah, well, I assumed that, but I didn't know.
not maximum. But that does beg the question is, do we want to put a maximum to it? And there's nothing in here about the chickens not being allowed to roam free. I didn't really read anything in here that says the chickens must be kept for all 24/7 in the coop.
Well, when you say that we need a run, we figured that's where they had to be required to be, not free range. But there again,
But
At-
there again, this does
yeah.
not prohibit free range.
But the run could be your entire backyard, right?
Right, right.
if they wanted to get a permit for a structure that size.
Well, the run would be just a fenced-in area, right?
That's where I looked
Be
at it.
enclosed, would it not?
Not totally enclosed, but it has to be able to be made safe from predators, dogs, cats.
Well, that brings up the other issue too. We have a requirement on how high a fence can be. So how high is the fence? Do we have a standard for the fence for the backyard? And the fence, is the top going to have to be covered for hawks and stuff like that from?
Well, those people are gonna learn real quick. 'Cause they're not gonna have 6 chickens
Well,
anymore.
I mean, they were the things I just pulled up when I went. You
Daryl,
can find a lot on YouTube.
yeah. I can't believe we're having this much discussion on chickens, but it is what it is. If this goes through, you're gonna be in charge of, okay? We know from living here, as long as we have, there's chickens already here in backyards. Are you gonna be knocking on doors? Hey, you're gonna need a zoning certificate and all that?
Well,
How's that all gonna work? Well, you know what I'm getting at, you
yeah,
know?
sure. So
It's not the new ones, it's the one that's already here.
I've had a couple roosters apprehended. So it's amazing. A rooster, the county will come get that rooster out of this town.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because, sorry?
That was next to my house, was the roosters.
On,
Baumgartner at Robertsville.
oh, that one. Yeah, yeah. We don't have any rooster. And you can hear it. I park my truck and I go, this is gonna be easy. But,
But aren't we all opening up a kind of a Pandora's box? I mean, with,
Well, in my opinion, if we're gonna have an ordinance, you don't get grandfathered in, so, because they're not allowed now, right?
Right.
Technically, they're not allowed.
Right.
So if we're gonna create an ordinance, they have to abide by the ordinance all. And you give them a grace period, whatever, 60, 90 days till you have to comply, whatever. But you can't say, well, you already had your chicken, so
no,
we're okay.
no, I get it. I
Well,
get
is
it.
the city going to establish a register so we know how many chicken growers we have in town?
well, the Maryland Department of Agriculture requires that all flocks be registered. All right?
Yes.
Now, that would be a good thing, you think, right? Because, the bird diseases are real. The day that, a month or so ago, when the Carroll County Times did the report on it, page 3 or 4, someone here in town called me and said, hey, have you read the Carroll County Times today? I said, I did. And I didn't pick up on the backstory in page 3 or 4 about there being an outbreak somewhere in Maryland of the avian flu. So, that kind of stuff's, it's real, I guess. I'm not really around birds much, but again, under the best conditions, is what, we're gonna have to hope and pray that people are raising these chickens. I worry about, someone trying to save a buck, because if you go to buy a chicken coop, you're gonna spend some money.
Oh, yeah.
And, because it should be strong enough for an adult to get into to get the eggs, right? So you're not doing no 1x2s. And then you have to keep the chickens warm in the winter. Well, I don't know. How well's an old lamp from grandma's house in the chicken coop keeping people warm, or keeping the chickens warm? Those kinds of things have to be thought about, because, it just, 20 years ago, I'd probably done chickens in my yard if it were allowed. All right, but I'm too old to be playing those kind of games. 10 degrees, walking down there and feeding them, cleaning out the chicken coop. It's a lot. And again, it is. I mean, they even have rules saying that we read in the Maryland slate that if you plan on being away more than 7 days, have someone tend your flock, or tend your chickens. So.
So what we're discussing now, is that going to go back to the city council through the liaison?
It will go back to city council. I think that we ought to have our list of questions to go back to city council with. I certainly will be happy to present that on Wednesday.
Okay.
We meet this Wednesday or next Wednesday, Jim? Next Wednesday, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to put together a list of questions and send it over to me, I will be happy to to ask those questions and make sure that those things are considered.
Because I really think we need some type of register in town. I mean, there's all kinds of agencies out there that regulate, but that information doesn't come to the city unless we ask for it.
Chairman, if you don't mind, in the ordinance, it says that you will register your flock and you will supply a copy of that to the city. Because for me to do a database and try to, it just, the state has a function for that. That's a good point. Yeah, so, yeah, we do want them registered. And that is certainly something we would, hey, my neighbor has chickens. I've had those calls, And I should be able to check in the database, check with the state, with the Department of Agriculture, hey, is this flock registered? That creates a whole new set of issues for the owners of those chickens.
I don't want to drag this out, but anybody that has a comment, want to give them a chance to talk about it. Dan, did you have some more questions?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so just reading what we have here, I was trying to get in my head what the steps are that you would follow. So if I wanted to have chickens, the first thing I have to do is take the class, right? That's the
Yes.
online class. And then I'm assuming I would build a coop and get it inspected, right? Somebody has to come out.
You would do a permit with a drawing.
To the county
Before you build.
or to you?
To me.
You, okay.
Would it come to us? Shouldn't they come to us before they go through the process of building a coop and stuff?
Oh, yeah, they're gonna do a drawing like they would with any other bill.
and-
Any other accessory structure?
They would present that, and then you would provide the city zoning certificate, right? That says you can build your coop then, right? Okay.
If it meets all the criteria, yes.
And then the next step would be, well, I guess you buy your chickens next. So you got to have this proof of registration with Maryland Ag, right? So is
Yeah.
that, I guess that's after you buy your chickens then, so you build
Yes.
your coop. Then you get proof of registration. Okay.
Let me hang out. When they come to us, then that will also serve as a public hearing then too, right? For their neighbors and stuff to come before us?
No.
No?
That's what this is.
Yeah, so that was my other question here was,
I didn't want you to get away from it. That's why I asked that, because
Yeah.
I would think if somebody's putting chickens next to me and I was a neighbor, I'd like to know about it before I hear it.
yeah. So that was the one question I had, which I was kind of figuring out where this would happen here, but you're gonna, the only complaints you're gonna have are from the neighbors,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
right? Now, I mean, I don't ask my neighbor if I'm gonna buy a dog that barks all night, but,
So chickens make noise, just if you haven't seen one in person, go back to the childhood cartoons. You can hear them clucking and stuff or whatever. So they do make noise. They need treats. I didn't realize this, but chickens actually need treats. They eat a lot of bad stuff that would be in your yard, bugs and all that type of thing. So there's a value there. So.
Just curious, what are the other towns doing?
So Polesville is who we used, correct? For a good bit, yeah, we had a number of them. But Polesville did tell me, and that's a small area too, that they enacted their ordinance around the beginning of this year. And there was an uptick in chicken activity, but it has slowed down a little bit.
And they did that because of the uptick of,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's becoming an issue everywhere, so eggs have gotten expensive evidently. I buy them, I don't know what they cost. I'm a bad shopper, I guess.
not as much as chicken feed in a coop and.
You're right.
Yeah, having these chickens is way more expensive
And that's
than
what,
buying eggs.
and that's what we were told when we reached out to the professionals and a professional at the Humane Society who raises chickens. She has a chicken that lays eggs, stops producing eggs, it becomes a meal, and she cycles them through that way. So, and she's a professional about it, and, she swears by God that a fresh egg is better than, one, in any grocery store, and I'm sure that's probably true.
Now, I will swear to that, owning a bed and breakfast, and I tell you I know where our eggs come from and how fresh they are, and I will tell you there is a difference.
Wow. Yeah.
I see Jay came up. Jay, did you have comments at this point, or are you still listening?
It's frozen in time right now.
Okay.
So, I mean, I still have a couple of questions regarding setbacks and lot sizes, because there's nothing in here about um, lot sizes yeah, how big does your property, how big does your backyard have to be before we can allow this? I mean, if your backyard is big enough for an accessory structure of this size, we have to let it be allowed?
Yeah, if your lot,
Yeah, it was written, not to be, well, it was written in a way that your typical single-family dwelling in the R10,000 district could most likely do it. A townhouse-sized lot would not be able to, at least for the townhouse lots that we have in the city, because they wouldn't be able to meet the setbacks. Accessory buildings are limited to not more than, I don't know if it's 30% or a third of the backyard. So
30%,
there
yeah.
is a limiting factor there as well. So it, again, the original draft was a little bit more prohibitive of who might be able to qualify, like for yard size, to have them, and then consensus of the council was to ease up a little bit. You know, that's kind of the draft that's before you now. The idea of it coming before the planning commission, you know, wasn't really discussed, or the idea of having to send notices out to neighbors like we would for a special exception wasn't really discussed.
Wouldn't you think that would be wise?
So those certainly would be approaches that could be taken.
So this is only in a residential district, so a general business like East Balmer Street, how would that apply? District is in general business.
If there's a dwelling on the property, and there are some houses that exist in general business, so they would be, if it's a residential property, I would imagine they would be able to do it, just like they will be able to put a fence up or put a shed in their backyard without having to come before you, as long as it's for, you know, residential use.
residential districts is what it says.
Okay, sorry.
Chris, you had some more?
Well, yeah, the other thing, you know, I mentioned earlier about free ranging and it not being a requirement that the chickens be kept within the run. So that's a bit of a worry, because, you know, talk about chickens being the new cats, that they're everywhere, and you certainly don't want to be having to, you know, chase chickens out of your backyard. The other question I had reads letter D, coops and runs must be a minimum of 20 feet from any dwelling on the property. I would like to see that to be changed to from any dwelling, because we don't want to come in a situation where it's 20 feet from that dwelling, 10 feet off the property line, but then there's a house right there next to that property line, so the coop then is only 10 feet away from that other house. So we probably ought to clean that language up a little bit.
Be 20 feet from any dwelling.
That's not what it says here. From any dwelling on the property is what it says.
We had talked about that, but that makes the applicant then show us where the dwelling, the neighbor's house is. So they may, if they get along with their neighbors, it's probably not a problem for them to go over with measuring tape and measure how far their neighbor's house is. But typically, when we're issuing zoning certificates, we're looking at the specific property, the subject property. You know, and certainly there could be a situation, especially in the older part of the city, where there are existing dwellings that don't meet the current setback requirements. But in most of the city, you know, like in the vast majority is R10,000 that's been built in the last 30 years. You know, that requires a 10-foot side yard setback. So if the coop is 10 feet from any property line, the closest the next house is going to be is 10 feet more away from that. So but there certainly would be exceptions.
Yeah, I mean,
But the general rule, you know, for most properties is, you know, there's a 10-foot minimum side yard and a, you know, 25-foot in R10 rear yard setback. So it's unlikely, but certainly there could be
I mean,
you know,
my
situations
property
where,
is a
right.
classic example of that, where, you know, adjoining properties back right up to my property line. So, you know, adjoining buildings, adjoining dwellings, occupied dwellings, back right up to my property line. So, you know, not that anybody in the downtown area has chickens, but there, you know, there are, like you said, some older properties in the downtown area where this could be an issue. I just think it ought to be,
Okay.
addressed.
Yeah, and we realized there are ways that you can do that. I mean, yeah, we could get, you know, laser measuring, you know, devices and things like that, but with the tools on hand, you know, we've got a measuring tape in the truck and a measuring wheel.
Yeah, I'd be
And,
concerned if my neighbor didn't like me enough to let me measure from his house. He's not gonna like me having chickens.
And again,
It
it's-
also kind of spurs the revenge chicken kind of thing.
Well, and again, going back to the originally proposed setback, which was 20 feet, you know, that would have kind of maintained that distance.
Yeah, although, again, for some lots in the center of the city,
Right.
that would eliminate.
Exactly, right. So, I mean, that would be another mechanism. That would be an easier mechanism to use.
Yep.
Because then you're still focused on the subject property and not the neighbors.
Okay. Were you finished?
Just had a comment, that's all. So, I'm not a chicken hater, and I like fresh eggs, but I'm having a hard time thinking that having chickens in town is a good idea, that's all I'm saying.
So if this goes through, what happens to the original ordinance that bans all animals in town? So what are we doing with that? Because one's contradicting the other one then.
Jay's draft addressed
I
that.
think Jay's nodding on that.
Yeah, in the, I mean, to make this happen, we'd have to change this and not call it, it would say this is not animal husbandry. So if you want to make this happen, I can make it happen. I represent the town of Poolsville that was talked about earlier. And I feel like I should tell you, you know, the behind the scenes there was a real push to do this from the citizens. And there was a real push not to do it from the citizens. And out of all the issues that I've dealt with them for over 10 years, this was the most divisive issue that they talked about for years. I mean, this went on for like 18 months before they adopted it. And they finally adopted something like this where, you know, but the county is doing most of their enforcement because Montgomery County allows chickens. So there wasn't a lot on them. And despite that fact, this has been the most controversial zoning issue that they've had since then. Families have gotten lawyers to sue their neighbors, have turned their neighbors in because their coop was too close and then the shed was too close. You know, you got to do what you got to do and everybody gets used to it. But this is not something like that is not controversial, I guess, put it to you that way. And Poolsville is into this stuff. Okay, they wanted this to happen. There was, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt.
Well, because like I said, as I've maintained all along, either we pass this or we go around town and tell everybody with chickens to get rid of them. One way or the other, but, you know, and I don't really care which way. Doesn't matter to me, but we have to have a law we can enforce.
Okay. We'll open this up to the floor. Anyone from the floor would like to come forward and make comments? Please do, since you evidently have some issues.
Oh, no, I had no issues with the roosters from like last year. That was another story.
Just come to the mic so you can, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Talk to us about chickens.
yeah, just go ahead and tell us your name and all that good stuff.
I was gonna say Harry Mead from Baumgartner Avenue. Yeah, I was the one that had 3 roosters next door that were basically 10 foot off of my deck. Rather loud. And then they stuffed them in the shed at night so that they'd be quiet. And anyway, but you helped out a lot with that, so thank you. In general, though, I mean, roosters, yeah, I can definitely see that's a problem because their noise and they're even more annoying than dogs on that front. A dog that just sits out there and barks all day. But a lot of this, it seems like a solution in search of a problem. I mean, are we overrun at this point? Are we what?
ordinance that doesn't allow it. So, that, once it, I mean, that's the situation, the way I see it. We have an ordinance and doesn't allow it, and so we either have to enforce that one or add a new one.
But do you have to go like all the way on the massive enforcement side at that point? Because I mean, you were just laying out like you have this step and then this step and then this step and the, I mean, sounds like getting a concealed carry permit, but
Yeah, we just can't, we can't be seen as selectively enforcing the law, because if we go down that road and the guy over here has a flock of chickens, the guy over here wants a cow. But how do we tell him he can't have his cow if we've told this guy he can have his chickens?
cow takes a lot more space than a chicken does, and
Well, we're gonna even go,
Prohibited by ordinance,
Yeah, the
so
ordinance is the same,
where do
yeah.
you go?
but yeah, I mean that's when you get into like just sizes of other animals. But yeah, so I mean,
The ordinance prohibits them all. So if you tell that guy he can't have his cow, you gotta tell that guy he can't have his chickens.
okay. I mean, it seems like there should be an easier way than installing like 4 layers of bureaucracy. when we could just say,
All right, I wish it was
yeah,
easier.
you can have a couple of chickens. And then,
and if chickens turns into guineas. Guineas are a lot noisier than a chicken.
It is interesting how many towns are talking about chickens.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
we were just at the planning commissioners conference, and it was a hot topic.
yeah, well, a lot of people are
right.
getting more self-sufficient.
Let's move on. I think,
That horse is
Daryl,
dead.
if we create a list of comments that hasn't already been added or something, present that to the city council when you give your report, and you can back him up.
I will back that up.
So I think coming from us, you've heard all sides, both for and against and whatever. So unless Jay has something else to say or add, I think we can move on. We good with that? All right.
I think it was actually a worthwhile discussion, because it carries a lot of things back to council.
All right. I guess discussion, on our conference we just had. Which personally, I think it was a very good conference.
It was. I totally agree
We
with you.
learned a lot, talked to a lot of people that we're not here by ourselves.
No, that's exactly right.
Even though we're here for the people, there's a lot of people that's in the same area we're in. They all have certain issues, and like I say, it was very good.
Yeah.
Bill or Dan or Chris, or you guys want to make
I
comments or
just,
anything,
I
please do
want to
so.
thank Daryl for helping to put that together and letting us all know about it, and for attending that with us. I think it was a very, very useful conference. I learned a great deal that I did not know, and I think that some of us came away with a little bit different take on certain things.
I agree. Yeah.
I think some of the classes were better than others, but overall, I think it was good for sure. But your point on how we all have the same problems, it would kind of be nice if we could collaborate somehow instead of just once a year. That would be and I'm not sure what that solution would be, but like for instance, if you read the Emmitsburg paper, Thurmont, Fairfield, Emmitsburg, everybody talks about chickens, everybody, we all talk about the same stuff, we just do it separately.
I think one of the things that I came away from the conference with was the fact that the Department of Planning, the State Department of Planning, has a representative who is there for us to use as a resource. And I think we ought to
Yeah.
employ that resource a little more.
Matter of
So
fact,
that was-
we did pick up some information, and Darryl, I think you've got something on the comprehensive plan, maybe be able to get some help.
Yeah, so a couple things. So what was amazing to me, so we're all running around thinking, oh, we want to update our Taneytown comprehensive plan. And it's, I feel bad, 'cause I know that it falls under, my purview also. But you know, a lot of people are responsible for that, but the bottom line is, it's an overwhelming document. It's a year and a half. You know, I mean, it's from what I've been told. And so from what I've learned from that conference is that even out of the new secretary's mouth, how many, you know, and the state's starting to look at it a little bit differently too, in the way that the information is brought forth and presented or used or what have you. But I was also majorly impressed with the fact that how many people are in arrears when it comes to that document. It's a very common thing, more so than who are in good graces with that. So we're not alone. And here's what it all comes down to, okay? Money. You know, no one recently, except for maybe, I don't know, maybe Queen Anne's County, but that was, I don't know who paid for that but that was what, 3 individuals working for a long time on one document. So I say that to say this, the city's gonna have to, you know, I think that what needs to happen is, you know, the mayor and city council's gotta, you know, be putting some monies to the side to do this. Let's knock it out, with, you know, hire help. And then they will be better able to maintain and watch for things that would change from our year to year. And down the road, it's a lot less of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they would have the staff available to do the dirty work, as it were, of putting the actual document together. So that, you know, as a planning commission, we could concentrate on the overarching concept and hire professionals to iron out the details and come back to us with it.
So can we put this somewhere on the council's agenda as a priority and try to move
I can,
forward with this?
if you'd like, I can bring it up on the next Wednesday.
It's going to be on the
Going to be on the
November
agenda.
agenda as
Okay.
a new business item for discussion. So,
I know our 2010, it was about 3/4 inch thick. The one corporation, whatever it was down there, they had one I know was 3 inches thick
Yeah.
for their, I'm not sure if it was a city or a county or what, but it was 3 inches
It was
thick. and
county, I think, but it
it
was,
took
yeah,
'em-
it was 3 inches thick.
And
I
they,
think it was Montgomery
18
County.
months to 2 years it took them to do that.
How long?
But they had also outside help.
How long did it take them?
It was either 18 months or 2 years. I can't remember what they said. But it takes time.
Yeah.
And so,
if we are, just to kind of clarify, if we are able to bring in a consultant to kind of guide us through the process, you know, that would be wonderful. But, you know, it still needs to be an open process. We still need to get community input, and planning commission, you know, really kind of steers that, you know, what the plan's going to look like. So it's still going to be a lot of effort on your part. Now, whether that looks like, you know, a separate monthly meeting, or perhaps this group can meet earlier in the evening for like comprehensive plan workshops, and then the consultant would take, you know, the information gathered each month and go back and work on, you know, converting that to text and putting it in the, you know, making it meet the, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on how many visions the state has now that are, or elements we have to have.
I think it's 13, isn't it?
12.
12, okay. So, you know, but there's,
Yeah, I believe we talked to someone at a municipality who said that they dedicated the first half hour of their planning commission meeting while they were going through this process to strictly comprehensive plan business. So that may be something we start a half hour early and do that.
I think we do whatever it takes, if it takes the half an hour or if it takes to have a workshop session. Whatever it takes, especially to get it moving on.
Yeah, because we need to move forward. I
We
mean,
need
we've
to get-
got,
we
we've got
need-
several very large developments in the wind out there that we need to make sure that our comprehensive plan is updated and that they're falling within it, and we're all on the same page, a lot of us, so.
Sounds good. Okay. Anything else? Okay, that brings us almost to the end. Does anyone from the floor have any other comments? If not, we'll go around the room. Chris, you have anything else to add?
No, just the excellent time that I had, learning a lot of interesting things and a lot of good speakers, and made a lot of nice contacts and met a lot of good people who can help us along on our journey here. So,
You find any new customers? Okay, Dan,
Nothing else, no.
Fred,
I have nothing.
Bill,
I'm good. I'm good.
same way here. I imagine we all got a form from Claire to fill out, or was that from you?
Those are me.
All right,
Yeah, multitasking here. Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, fill out your form, get it to me. You can drop it off, you can email it, take a picture of it, and, you know, as a text or whatever, and I'll get it through the system as quickly as I can.
Do you need the actual copy of the receipt?
Now,
Did I give that to you?
I was gonna include it anyway. If you have it, I would include it, just make it easy.
yeah, I'm just using my credit card receipt.
I'll drop it
okay,
off.
all right.
Yeah,
Well, I dropped that off in September.
I don't plan to submit mine.
okay. If you need it, if you need it,
Next
just let me
meeting's
know.
gonna be
I got
November 27th.
Right, that's after Thanksgiving.
Yes. Okay. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Chris moved. Bill seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. I'm not gonna put down my $11 or my $41 salary.